Okay, I got the thumbs up from Olivia. Thank you very much. I can report that we only discussed those items in camera that were listed on the in-camera agenda. Other business, we have a verbal update from Scott Taylor regarding Bill 185, Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act 2024. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and good afternoon, Warden and members of County Council. Some of you may have heard a version of this update at the PDAC yesterday, so I'll keep this brief. Committee may recall that on May 9th, we had a report that was providing comments on both Bill 185 and the draft 2024 provincial planning statement. Bill 185 has now received royal assent, and we're still waiting on a decision from the province on the provincial planning statement. There were some comments flagged in that report where the county was supporting changes that the province was considering through Bill 185, and there were some other areas where we raised some concerns or suggested some further changes. Since the time we submitted our comments through that May 9th report, there were some changes made to the legislation as it stood before we commented prior to it receiving royal assent. Most notably, those changes dealt with appeal rights for official plans, official plan amendments, zoning bylaws, and zoning bylaw amendments. The province has added some new bodies that could consider appealing those, including NAV Canada, airport authorities, or licensed pits and quarries within 300 meters of a official plan or zoning amendment. The other change they've made is to clarify that registered owners can now appeal an official plan or a new comprehensive zoning bylaw. So if you were passing a new zoning bylaw in your municipality and somebody had participated throughout the public process, they could appeal that zoning bylaw as it pertained to their property. However, those same people, however, neighbors cannot appeal official plan or zoning amendments. So if we look at Becky's report from a few minutes ago, if somebody was looking to potentially, as a neighbor, appeal that quarry operation under the new provisions under Bill 185, they would no longer be able to. There is also some retroactivity to this in that third-party appeals for these files that were in process prior to April 10th, but hadn't received a hearing date yet now are dismissed. With respect to some of the other Bill 185 changes, the province kept in the portions about proponents now being able to appeal settlement area boundary expansion refusals. So if you had somebody coming to your municipality asking for an official plan amendment to expand a settlement area and your council refused that, the proponents can now appeal that decision, whereas previously they couldn't. When we look at these appeal right changes, it seems to be the settlement area boundary one is the one that's generating the most discussion in the media, amongst farm groups, amongst environmental groups, climate action committees, in that there's a worry that this will lead to more sprawl and inefficient development in that regard. Some of the other changes speak to pre-submission consultation processes now being voluntary. That can also be referred to the tribunal even before we have an application. There's some further regulation making authority as it pertains to additional residential units, parking minimums, and community service facilities. Thankfully, from a staff perspective, the mandatory fee refunds that were first instituted through Bill 109 have been removed. So in our opinion, that's a good news story for municipalities because there were fee refunds for both zoning amendments and site plan amendments in that regard. There have been some changes to the Development Charges Act that were generally supported by council and staff, including removing the mandatory phase-in for a new DC study and bylaw. Capital studies are now added back as an eligible cost. So those are all positive. The county had suggested through our comments that they consider adding in back in social housing as a DC collectible charge, but this change was not made. And then finally, there were some changes made to the Municipal Act with respect to servicing allocation bylaws and new circumstances under which the minister could issue regulations with respect to bonusing. We generally didn't have any concerns with respect to the servicing allocation bylaws. The bonusing, we did raise some comments with and asked for very clear guidelines if the province was going to pursue that, because that gets into potentially shaky ground in that regard. With that, staff will continue to monitor these changes, including any implementing regulations, as well as the passing of the future provincial planning statement, and we will keep council advised accordingly. Certainly happy to take any questions, but the purpose was more or less just to give an update.
Thank you, Scott. Are there any questions on the update? Okay. Oh, Counselor Mackey.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. Scott, from all the consultation that the province did with member municipalities, were there any significant changes based on the input that was provided by municipalities? Did the government sway at all in their final draft?
Through you, Mr. Warden. Sometimes it's tough to know how the sausage is made. I'll say that the most notable change is those changes to appeal rights. I'm not sure if that was as a result of municipal industry, other comments or comments from some of their political colleagues in that regard, but that was the most notable change that we've been able to track. Bill 185 did change a number of other pieces of legislation, which the county chose not to comment on because they didn't specifically impact county interests in that regard. So I'm not sure if there's further changes made there. With respect to those appeals, we're hearing some commentary that some of the changes were really targeted at making sure there was limited appeal rights, but that there might not be appeal rights for industry lobby groups or ratepayers associations, which is why they've added in this new registered owner term, so only owners can appeal. There's also some speculation online that it could have unintended consequences, in that previously, if you were a tenant, you could appeal something. Now it would appear in those situations only registered owners can. So again, I guess I kind of danced around your question in terms of whether or not municipal feedback shaped these changes. I'm not 100% sure, but those are the most notable changes we could find.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Just one moment, please. Please hold. Yes. Okay. Any notices of the motion? Councillor Body.
Thank you, Warden Mel, and I will bring a motion at our next meeting on June 27th, 2024 to request a consideration to request the staff report regarding options of funding for court security costs.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's duly noted. Any other notices of motion? Okay. I need one more motion to adjourn. Councillor McQueen. Councillor Eccles. All those in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you.